Division. With this is what their fourth album, I believe.
Yes.
Working on My Karma. Um, yeah, you know, I liked pretty much everything we talked about today. Fred again, probably my least favorite album, but I didn't expect Division to be fighting for my number one spot because I really thought this was really a great album. And
Hmm.
Division as a duo, I don't think we've talked about on the pod before, but
We talked about the
at least
last
I don't.
we talked about the last one in 2020, Amuse in Her Feelings, which was the first time we talked about them. But then they also released last year a collab album with Ty Dolla $ign that we did not talk about. So this is their first uh just the duo album in 2 years. But as we said at the time, notable group because they are of course signed to OVO Sound, signed to Jersey Drake, and as to be expected, are not really super famous or mainstream despite the mainstream attention and label affiliation that they have, to be expected with Drake signees, as people know. But especially off the last record, like really smooth artists, smooth male R&B artists. We've talked about male R&B a lot this year with Brent Faiyaz and Giveon, and of course people know that women really run the scene at this time, so it's a lot of competition. But yeah, I wasn't really expecting it. I think it just kind of like snuck up on me that it was coming out, and I didn't like this one as much as the last time, but I think there are some interesting qualities that they bring. Of course, this is the producer vocalist duo with the producer 1985, who of course did a lot of Drake production with Views. But they haven't really worked with Drake in a while, it seems like, but they're still on the label. But yeah, why'd you like it so much? What stood out to you about the fourth Division album?
I think a few things. I think some of the songs were just really fun. Like right off the bat, Last Time featuring Blue, I thought was just like a really fun, like captivating track. And you're just kind of bouncing to it. But then you have a few just like I think like really like fun flourishes throughout. I was really surprised, but also like in like the best way possible to get the Take It Slow sample from John Legend and even have
Hmm.
that as like the outro. I thought that was like a nice touch. There's a couple tracks in the second half that I thought were like just really, really like uh, just like probably some of the best R&B that we've listened to this year. And I think overall, my expectations going into this weren't very high. Obviously, I didn't remember much about Amusing, so
Right.
I was like, not super taken by them. And I just thought this was some of the smoothest R&B that we've talked about on here. So I was really excited. When you get good R&B, it really, at least for me, sticks with me. So I thought this
Yeah.
was great. But what did you find didn't live up to your expectations from last time?
Yeah, well, speaking of touches, I really love that there's a Jagged Edge feature on this.
Yeah.
Just shout out Jagged Edge, awesome pull. It's really cool to hear stuff like that once in a while. Like I remember back, 4 years ago when Charlie Puth had Boys to Men on voice notes. It's like when you like pull like from the past, like in a manner like that, like a seemingly genuinely loving manner. Really nice to hear. I think for me, the thing that kind of disappointed me about it was one of the singles, of course, got a lot of flack early on, a few weeks back. If I Get Caught, just because like
Mm.
literally the way the chorus goes, like if I get caught cheating, doesn't mean I still don't love you or whatever it goes. It's like just kind of like an openly toxic thing that we associate negatively in male R&B. And I think the thing with this album for me is that I think the singing voices from the singing voice from Daniel Daly, the vocalist in Division, his voice he's smooth and like he's produced well and like he always sounds good, but like it's not like as like striking a vocal as like the baritone that we know Giveon has. Like it doesn't like wow you like that. And on the other side of things, like the toxic wise, or even just like more inventive music, like the approach doesn't impress me the way Brent Faiyaz does, you
Hmm.
know? So I feel like this is kind of like an in the middle R&B record to me. And given there's a lot of like competition for your time and your ears in R&B right now, it just didn't really live up to I think what I was hoping for, because the last record I did really appreciate just how smooth that was, and my takeaway was that they deserve a much bigger spotlight than they've gotten despite being signed to Drake. And I still agree with that thought, but like I think this one just came in a little short to me.
Man, I'm surprised to hear you say the smooth critique. I felt like this was incredibly smooth. It's something like tired near the end of the album. Just feels like you're just like gliding like over like silk sheets or something like that, you know? Um I agree with you on if I get caught. That song in and of itself sounds like it should be on like a 50 Shades soundtrack, so you can just take that out of there. But like I thought something like Don't Take Your Love is like so bouncy and like fun to like just like have in the middle of the album and really takes you to like this different place. Then you kind of get back to like the more traditional type sound. Something like Hating is uh a little bit more traditional, I guess, like this that vocal loop is a bit distinguished. But then, like I said, like Take It Slow, I think is an inspired like use of that piano, like
Yeah.
to like really take that and kind of like tone it up, but also would like loop it around a little bit, bring in the drums, and then have John Legend on the outro. I guess maybe that was just like cool to get that like cleared to do that. Also, a nice cosign from John Legend to allow that, I'd say. But yeah, and I agree that the Jagged Edge sample was cool too. But
Yeah. I mean, this
some good
album
stuff.
was like executively produced by Jermaine Dupri, like Jagged Edge, not as mainstream or prolific as he once was, but still like big deal to have Jermaine
Yeah.
Dupri working on your stuff uh, in that way. That as much as he was, of course, making or co-producing every song. So yeah, I think for me, it's just like I actually had like higher expectations after the last record, and this one just didn't quite match that for me. But I don't think it's bad or anything like that. Um, yeah, I mean, we talked about R&B, I think, a lot more the last year or two than we have prior to that. You know, I just there's more and more stuff happening that's interesting. You know, whether it's a Jasmine Sullivan, whether it's a Brent Faiyaz, whoever it might be, there's a lot going on. I think that's really great for the genre. So you know, the fact that you have so much melody in hip hop, like that's kind of like the default sound right now. But R&B can still be its own separate thing and hasn't been like put off in the corner or just ignored. Like R&B's come like a really long way in the last 10 years after really hitting a dip. So I think Division definitely helping the cause, you know. So I'm sure people that are fans of Division will be into this one.
Well, we'll probably add a song to our Nostalgia Best of 2022 playlist on Spotify, so follow there.